I do love this. I don't know if you started this, but a woman in her 70s was in her 20s in the 1970s. Many old ladies fought the good fight in their day. Yes, the hippie generation.
Yep.
Love it.
There is
Love it.
something about that though. Like Pat and I have discussed it. Where progressive people stop being progressive. So in their day, as you said, fighting the good fight, recognizing injustices in their world as it existed then. And then things get better and they stop. They go, you quite often see this with LGBTQ discussions. Like the people that are okay with the gays now, because that was the fight from, say, the 80s, don't get the trans discussion. And it's like, well, it's the same discussion, it's just a different group of people, but they can't get there. And you see a lot of that from those older gays as well. Like there's a significant clump of lesbians that don't support trans people. And they might have valid reasons and they might not, but they just don't seem to recognize that fight as a continuation of their own struggle. So that's something to be aware of, at least. But yeah, just because you're progressive now doesn't mean that you're going to be progressive later. You can go, I fought the good fight and I don't have to do it anymore.
I think if you're going to end up in that position, I think as long as you know that that's a position that you might get to in the future, I think that's where you sort of lay down and say, okay, I'm no longer part of the next progressive generation. I need to step down and let them speak and support whatever they want. Because clearly I'm stuck in my ways now. I've started to get sort of, I don't know, stuck in a different generation. So these kids, even if I don't understand them, they clearly have something that I don't understand about the way society needs to progress. And let's be honest, they're the future. Let's allow them to have the future that they want. I'm going to be dead in 20, 40 years, whatever it is.
It also links back to what Chloe was saying, is it's sort of, don't be scared of conflict, of tough conversations, of tough thoughts and self-examination, if I could extend that out a bit. Like I remember having a really good discussion with Pat, I think it was earlier last year, about how important feeling uncomfortable is sometimes. It's not a nice feeling. That's why people like being comfy. But if you're comfy all the time, you're also not challenging yourself. And I think being mentally uncomfortable about a discussion and actually having that discussion rather than avoiding it because you don't like that yucky feeling of self-examination, that just makes you complacent. And I think the other aspect of that comes in, like the lady in the hikoi was saying, is that their younger generation is going to pick up that flag and take it further. That sort of thing is really important as well. But yeah, there are, you look back at the protest movement and you see the people, like say the protest movement, the civil rights movement in America, people taking rubber bullets and fucking fire hoses because black people should be able to sit on a bus sometimes. Is that's not that long ago. A lot of the people that were around, like what is it, the first, that little black schoolgirl that had to get escorted to school by the National Guard is still alive.
Rosa.
She's 70.
No, that's Rosa Parks, but she was one in the back
Yeah,
of the
you're
school
thinking
bus.
Rosa Parks, but yeah, this
Yeah.
was that, like, they had to use the National Guard to escort this girl to the first integrated school or something like that. That woman is 70. So there are older people in New Zealand that would have protested against the Americans in nuclear free, the Springbok tour, all of those sort of things. So yes, I don't want to write off an entire generation, even though we often comment on the boomers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We shouldn't homogenize people, but generalize, I guess, a generation. But um, yeah, I think for you and I, having grown up, perhaps long stayed at the bottom of the very bottom of New Zealand, yeah,
Hmm.
you kind of get to know that white people are a little bit different down there, and white
Yeah.
people a little bit further north, and just generally people a little bit further north have very different views. Um,
And that's
yeah.
that comfiness, right? If you're not confronted
Mm,
with it, you don't have to think about it. And
mm,
and I mean, I think of no, if this is the first time that I ever saw racism, but in Timaru, I remember seeing two skinhead guys yelling at a Maori guy to go back to where he came from. And even as a 10, like I would have been about 10 or 11. So my knowledge of history and stuff was purely out of commando magazines and stuff like that, of going, that's a Maori guy. Why he is where he came from. And just I think that moment really just locked in a core memory for me of like, ah, racists are stupid. But yeah, like I had one Maori friend, like visibly Maori friend at primary school. Apart from that, like it was very, very white. I remember the first Vietnamese family to move into the neighborhood, sort of thing. Like if you're surrounded by your own people and your own culture, it's all very comfy. You don't have to think about this sort of stuff. And I think that's why it's sometimes slower moving down here when it comes to these discussions.
yeah, sadly. So, but I love to see it. I love to see progressive people of the old generations. Makes me really happy.
Mm.
And I'm glad that they put them on the news. It makes me even happier.